it comes to leadership and when it comes to running teams, you know, the battle cry has been grit. It's been hustle, right? Hustle hard, grit it out. But the problem with that is that if you look at some of the qualities of grit, always being on, always hustling, always doing whatever it takes, no matter what, even if you burn yourself into the ground, these are some of the same scientific attributes. These are some of the same attributes that are scientifically associated with burnout, right? And so it kind of puts us in a tricky situation, right, for us and our teams, when it seems like the path to success and the path to burnout look almost exactly the same. Right? It puts us in a bit of a trap. And I think if you look at people who are starting to leave their work, they're kind of realizing, I think what COVID did for a lot of us, it just gave us enough time and space to realize that those paths almost look identical. And so I've got to make this really weird trade-off in my life between success and health, right? Between my work and my well-being. And in some ways, it almost just seems like an impossible trade-off to make. And the truth is that we have compartmentalized work and well-being, and we've kind of played them off of each other without realizing that both of them are essential for high performance. And so it's time for us to stop playing these things off of each other, and it's time for us to start bringing these two things into harmony for ourselves and for our teams. Right? And this doesn't happen easy. We're talking about a complete shift in the way we've been operating for a very long period of time, but it is the future. And one of the ways that we can start to bring this into practice is through what I call this rhythmic renewal. What rhythmic renewal basically says is, look, we don't wait for vacations. We don't wait for long breaks in order to kind of restore ourselves. Because when we do that, what ends up happening is we tighten up too much. We get too rigid. And the problem is when we get too rigid for too long a period of time, it's very, very hard to get loose again. It's one of the reasons that vacations, by the way, are just such a weak tool. They're a very weak instrument when it comes to burnout. And a lot of people report feeling more stressed 1 week after vacation than they did 1 week before vacation, right? So vacations are great, but they're not the thing that we can now turn to say, this is the thing that's going to restore me. What we can turn to instead is rhythmic recovery. When I study high performers, what I've realized over the past 10 years is that they're taking deliberate rest every single day. In fact, the average high performer is taking somewhere around 8 deliberate breaks every single day, which I know sounds extraordinary, right? Given the world that we live in, it's like back to back to back to back to back. You're clicking off of one link, clicking onto another, exiting one meeting, getting into another. But what we find is that these top performers in very, very busy organizations, leading large teams, are making sure that they're taking these little breaks in between the day, right? So that they don't actually get to the point where they feel like they're in the red. They're not going from green to red, they're going from green to yellow back to green, right? And that's the practice. And it actually takes discipline. I'm saying this to you right now like it's easy. I know it takes work, but as it turns out, a great work ethic actually does take a disciplined rest ethic. And one of the ways to put this into practice, very, very simple, is what I call the 55-5 model. 55-5. Pretty simple. For every 55 minutes of work, you're taking 5 minutes of rest. 55-5. And you might say, look, I need that 60 minutes to squeeze it all in, but the reality is that what we find is that when you take that 5 minutes of rest, it actually makes the other 55 minutes just that much better, just that more productive, much more productive, just that much more imaginative. You walk into the next meeting and the next meeting after that with a much more restored sense of energy, right? And that has a cascading effect on the people around you as well. So what we're now seeing is that a lot of executives who are really interested in high performance are not calling 60-minute meetings. They're calling 55-minute meetings. And then they're setting the example for their teams to say, look, I'm not dialing in during these 5 minutes. I'm actually going to go do something, right? I'm going to go take some rest.